Hello again. We proudly welcome to our third lesson in SQL. My name is Akosmaila. In this lesson, we are going to look at how to use a select statement in SQL to return columns and then row or records in your database table. So here you welcome to a fresh database with only one table, which is a sales table. So the sales table here contains sales across the 2018 and 2019 year of a particular shop. So you can see we have ID here, which was automatically added by Microsoft Access prior to the data's importation. Then we have invoice date, product ID. So we have these columns here. Okay. So now, what is the use or what is the functionality of the select statement? Earlier on in the introductory lesson, we learned that the SQL is a language that is solely understood in databases, and it helps us and we said one of the use of SQL is that it helps us to retrieve records in a database. And we know that in the database or in a database, data is organized in tables. So an example is the sales table that we have in here. So this one was extracted, it was imported from a point of sale software or database. So now what the select statement in SQL does is that once you use a select statement, it helps you to return columns and then row or records in your tables. So for instance, without not wasting our time, let us get into our SQL view and run some queries to look at how the select statement works. So now we have on the ribbon here, you click create. Now you go to query design. It is not a problem if you leave the sales table also shown. It is not going to cause any problem. So here, because we are using the database, Microsoft Access database system, you could see that in Access everything is not solely SQL, though it is a database database management system. It also has a design grid that you can use in running your queries, and at the end of the day, your SQL commands or codes will be written for you at the background. But that is not our point of interest. Our point of interest is to do everything with the aid of SQL language. So we exit. Now here you can see we have SQL view here. So meaning that when you come to the query section, we have two views that you can use, either the grid view, which is what we have shown here, or the SQL view. So you hit SQL. Okay. So now by default, the first command that Access shows is the select statement. So the select keyword, you can see it is already here. So now the primary select statement that we normally use is the select star. So let's say select star from, so select star, what select star is going to do is that it is going to return all the columns that we have in this table, and then all the associated rows, which amounts to 3,356 here, because select star means all. So now you're going to say select star from, so from which table or which query. So we are selecting it from a table here. So we say select star from sales. SQL is case insensitive, so you need not mind. You can just blend your uppercase and your lowercase letters. So select star from sales. Now you go to design, you run this query. So you can see that query 1. Now this query has returned all our 3,383 records or rows, and then at the same time all our columns here or our attributes here. Okay, so that is the essence of the select star. So star means all records or all rows and all columns. Now let's modify our SQL statement. Now for instance, we just want to run a query that return ID, invoice date, and then product name. So how do we do that? We want only the ID, invoice date, so sales ID, invoice date, product name. Okay, so here we are going to say, instead of the star, we are going to say select ID, comma, so select ID, invoice date. If you misspell any of the attributes or the column headers, you are going to encounter an error. So select ID, invoice date, and then prod name. So now we have specified only 3 columns to be returned by the query. So we are selecting the ID, invoice date, and product name from sales. Okay, now we are done. You hit run. So now you can see that we are successful with this particular query because I have returned only ID, invoice date, product name. So now let's say that you want to add the product ID. You simply come into your SQL view. So let's say I want to insert it here. So I will say prod ID. So select ID, invoice date, prod ID, prod name from sales. So here you hit run, and now you can see that the prod ID has also been added to your query. So now also let's say that I want to select only the invoice dates, the prod ID, and then the cost amount. So what I will do is I quickly go to my SQL statement here. So here, let me modify this. So we say now you can make your query so readable by adjusting it and use other lines. So you can say select invoice dates, comma. So select invoice dates, prod name, comma. Then cost amount. I informed you earlier on that SQL is case insensitive. So select invoice date, prod name, cost amount from your table, which is the sales. So now you are done. Once you hit run, you have your query successfully returning the specified columns for you. So invoice date is here, prod name is here, cost amount is here. So let's say you want to add the sale amount. So you say comma sale amount. Now if you don't want to arrange your query in this form, any database management system that you find yourself where you can use your SQL language, you can choose to type everything on the same line, but then that normally doesn't make your code so readable. So that is very advisable that you arrange it in a chronological order at the stage. But because SQL is not a programming language, you should not actually be bothered with the sequence. So now that you are done, you hit run, and now you can see that we have the sale amount also over here. All right, so now our next task is, because this is a sales data, you can see that we have multiple or duplicate product names here as well as product ID here. And now let's say that our task is to find only the unique product. We want to know the unique product that we had in our database at that particular time, only the unique product. So how do we do that? Now for that, we are going to do that with, in addition, we are going to use, so if you want to do that, then it means that you have to blend the select keyword with distinct, then together with the column name. So what we are going to do is that SQL view here. So here we say select. Now what are we selecting? Distinct, because we want to read the distinct. So distinct what? Prod names. So prod names. Sorry, prod name from sales. Okay, so select distinct prod name from sales. Select distinct prod name. So we want to know the unique products that we had in our database. So we hit run, and now the system is telling you that we have 1,499. 1,499. So in the subsequent video, in the next video, we'll be looking at how to use the aggregate functions in SQL to, as a count, as a sum, and the mean, and the average. But for now, today, we just want this lesson, we just want to understand various ways that the select statements can actually be used in our SQL codings. Okay, so now these are the unique products that we have. So you can add the product IDs to, sorry, we cancel. So now let's say you want to save this query. Once you have it selected, you just hit Ctrl S. So let's say I can say unique products. Okay, so now let me add the IDs to it. So distinct product name, comma, prod name. So select distinct prod name, sorry, prod name, prod ID from sales. So you run, and now we have the individual codes added up automatically. Okay, so now the next thing we are going to look at is select keyword blend with the where condition. Now you can see that all the queries that we've run so far, we had returned almost all records or rows in the sales table. Now how about if you want to display only specific ones? So for instance, let's say that you want to display only those sales where the cost price was greater than 5,000. Those sales where the cost price was greater than 5,000. So how do we do that? Now let us run a new query. So query design. Okay, so here we are going to say select. So select ID, comma, prod name, sorry, invoice date first, invoice date, prod name, then cost amount. So we want to include the cost amount itself. So cost amount from sales. So now the code up to this level will return. So let's run this query and see something. So you can see it has returned ID, invoice date, product name, cost amount. But then all the records or the rows or the tuples have been retained. So how do you filter to include only where cost amount is greater than 5,000? Okay, so it is very simple here. So what you have to do is that you go to design view, sorry, not a table, so SQL view here. So now you remove the semicolon, then you add your where conditions. So where cost amount is greater than 5,000. Okay, so now we are selecting these columns, but then only where the cost amount is greater than 5,000. So we hit run. Okay, so we have 2,774 sales which fall in that category. So as you can see, these are the sales whereby the cost amount is greater than 5,000. Now what about if you want to see those sales where the cost amount is greater than 10,000? So here, sorry, you just simply come in here, you type 10,000, you run it. Okay, so now you can see we have only these records retained. So if you are asked to build a report, you simply you can simply just export this one to even PDF straight away, or once you have it selected, Control P to print it out by a printer. Alright, so now what about we want to select only those sales, but then we want where, so we are going to use select star. So let's go to select star. So let's say select star, because now we know how to use our SQL queries to return only specific columns. So we'll select star from sales, but then we want only 20 where the invoice date is 2019. So how do we do that? Now select star from sales. This one you say where. So where year. So where year of the invoice date. Where year of the invoice date. So year is a function in Access. So where year of the invoice date is equal to 2019. So select star from sales where year of the invoice date is equal to 2019. You hit run. And now you can see that we have only 2,819 records or tuples which fall in that category. Now how about if you want only where the year is equal to 2018, you simply say, sorry, so okay, so now for instance you want to, so this query when run will select all records where the cost amount falls within 10,000 and the cost amount is less than or equal to 30,000, and then order by invoice date. So order by invoice date. Order by means that we are sorting it by invoice date in descending order of magnitude. So we hit run, and the query does this for us. So guys, today's video is going to end over here. If you have not subscribed, kindly subscribe and let's help in the sharing. We'll continue with the select statement, particularly when it comes to the order by. We'll be looking at the group by and then the aggregate functions in the next video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next lesson. Bye bye.